The question is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and Labor supports this bill, the Health Protection Amendment Bill. We support this bill. It is a bill. The amendments come from a public health bill introduced by me quite a number of years ago. And when the Minister said that he had an unwavering commitment to good health, well, I can say that 7 or 8 years ago, so did we. And unfortunately, we have had to wait some time for this to become a big enough priority for the government to bring into this House, and I'm very pleased we are now on the second reading. Because there has been concern that the current legislation does not fully support public health practices and that have been articulated by those who work in public health and those who work in public health agencies over a very sustained period of time. So we realise these concerns. In fact, there are many more amendments that do need to be made that come from the Public Health Amendment Bill, which still sits on the order paper, and perhaps the government might like to lift a few more things out of that bill and proceed with them. So this bill does give effect to the government's decision in October 2013 to improve a range of measures available to protect the public from the harm associated with infectious diseases and with artificial UV tanning. Mr Speaker, I think the Minister probably pretty clearly set out the aim of the bill, and just briefly, it is to increase the range of infectious diseases that are notifiable to the Medical Officer of Health without identifying the information of the patient or the diseased persons. And as the Minister said, this includes HIV, gonorrhea and syphilis. It also improves the management of persons with infectious diseases by providing new management options, including directions issued by the Medical Officer of Health, court orders, urgent health risk orders and interventions. It strengthens legislative provisions for contact tracing of people who may have an infectious disease, and this bill introduces a ban on the provision of commercial artificial UV tanning services to people under 18 years of age. And I just do want to correct the Minister, maybe he hadn't been informed. It was not a unanimous decision of the Select Committee that we would only ban commercial tanning, UV tanning for services for under 18. In fact, there is a minority report provided from Labor, the Greens and New Zealand First, and I will get to that in a moment. I do want to say, however, Mr Speaker, that I am really pleased at the way the Health Select Committee is working under the chairmanship of Mr O'Connor. I thought that we had a very good chair in Dr Paul Hutchison, and we worked very well together. And I have to say that Mr O'Connor is shaping up to be a very good and open chair, and the work that was done on this bill I think is commendable, because when you look at the number of amendments that have been made, they were made, with the exception of UV tanning services, they were made listening to the submissions that came from the public. And also, I think, a very good contribution made by Kevin Haig, who, because of his background and the work that he had done in many different spheres, but particularly working for the AIDS Foundation, was very helpful in helping us make some of these amendments. I don't want to go through all the amendments we made, and anyone reading the bill would see that the Select Committee improved the bill by the amendments we made. But I do want to look at the one relating to privacy and identifications of persons. And so we have recommended that the changes here will ensure that the information collected in the new Part 3A, Management of Infectious Diseases, would be only used or only to be used or disclosed under the provision of the Health Act. And this is to encourage individuals to provide private information without fear of inappropriate disclosure. And I think that is really important, that the fear that something about a person could somehow be made public. And I think that we have amended that so we make that a lot stronger. Also, identifying information, it does allow the sex, the date of birth, the National Health Index number of a person with a notifiable disease to be disclosed, and that will assist Medical Office of Health with disease surveillance. The only other one I want to mention is in the whole area of appeals, and I want to pay credit to Kevin Haigh for raising this issue and getting an amendment up which would never have happened in the way it did if we had the previous Minister of Health. And although Dr Coleman's not here to hear this little bit of praise I may give him, and this will be a very rare occasion, Dr Coleman was sent the suggested amendment that was made within the committee as we were deliberating, amendment made by Kevin Haigh, which enabled a person to be able to make an appeal to the High Court about a district court's decision on an order, and part of an order, a variation of an order, or an extension of an order, which gave a proper appeal process, which was not in the original bill. When we came to agreement on it, it was sent to the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Health responded within a very short time and accepted the amendment. And I say that sincerely, that I do not believe that we would have got the same response, having been through a number of bills from the previous Minister. I, however, do want to express my real disappointment, and I actually think even most members on the committee share this disappointment, that we could not get the government to agree to ban commercial UV tanning services in New Zealand. You see, we are a health committee, and we do like to base our decisions on good evidence, and that is what we must do. We must look at the evidence, and we must then say what is the best we can do for the public health of New Zealand. The Minister said these changes we're making are proportionate to risk. Well, that does not apply, I have to say, Mr Speaker, to the banning of UV tanning services, which only applies to those under 18. And I'd like to say why. The World Health Organization classified sunbeds as a carcinogenic in 2009, and they estimate that sunbed use before the age of 35, not 18, but before the age of 35, increases the risk of melanoma by 75%, Mr Speaker. Can I repeat that? That sunbed use before the age of 35 increases the risk of melanoma by 75%. Skin cancer is one of the most common forms of cancer affecting New Zealanders. Each year, over 2,000 new melanoma cases are identified, and on average, 325 New Zealanders die from melanoma every year. Sunbed operators at the Select Committee, and we only had one submission that I think we heard, only one came along to support it, and they claim that artificial UV tanning beds are an important source of vitamin D. Well, the Ministry of Health, NIWA, the WHO, senior dermatologists and from the Commerce Commission argued that shortwave UVB rays, which they'll raise that reach the out of your skin from commercial use, pose a cancer risk that far outweighs any minor vitamin D benefits. Mr Speaker, the large, overwhelming majority were opposed to the commercial use of these sunbed services. And in fact, Australia that doesn't often beat us in terms of public health and many health measures, they have banned them. They can see that they are of no benefit. And we're now going to rely on some sort of code, and unfortunately, there was very recently, on the 8th of May, an undercover surveillance of tanning saloons undertaken by Consumer New Zealand, and they uncovered that more than 40% of the 60 sunbed operators it visited failed to implement safety checks, such as checking the customer's age, asking them to sign a consent form, and providing information on the dangers of UV exposure. One operator allowed a 14-year-old to use a sunbed. So we do not believe this bill has gone far enough. This was the opportunity for us to ban the commercial use. We can't stop what people do in their own homes. That is up to them. But there is absolutely no benefit from the commercial use of sunbeds. There is high risk presented to New Zealanders. Now, I just feel that many members on the committee felt the same way as we did, but were unable to do anything about it. So while we support the bill, we want to strongly stress that during the committee stages we will be introducing a supplementary order paper to ban the commercial use of sunbeds.